Hi, I'm Sarah, and today we're going to learn how to cut up a chicken into breasts, wings, drumsticks, and thighs. And it's a whole lot more economical to cut up a chicken yourself than it is to buy pre-cut chicken. Because when you buy pre-cut chicken, you're paying for someone else to cut it for you. And it's also a lot more economical because you can use the whole bird, including the carcass, the neck, and the giblets. So we're going to start with the bird breast side up. And you'll know it's breast side up because both the legs and the wings will be facing upward, and also the breast is softer than the back. I have here a 6-inch utility knife to cut this up, or you could use a boning knife if you had one. Let's start by taking off the legs. We're going to start by cutting this little piece of skin right here. We're not going to cut through the flesh, we're just going to cut the skin in between the two. And once we have cut the skin, we're going to put one hand on the breast and one hand grabbing the legs. And we're going to pull the thigh back. And we're going to pop this leg out of its joint. So you'll see the thigh bone has come up out of its joint and it's made kind of a popping sound. So we're going to pull this leg up. And we're going to cut in between the joint of the thigh bone. You never want to cut through bone, you always cut in between the joints. And so now we have the thigh portion and the drumstick portion separated from the carcass. And now we're going to separate the thigh from the drumstick so that we'll have two pieces. If you look closely, you'll see that there's this piece of fat right here, and that's going to indicate where the joint of the thigh and the drumstick is. So we're going to cut right in between there. And then it separates into two pieces. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to cut right in between where the skin is. Remember, you don't cut the flesh, you just cut the skin. Then we're going to pull back and dislocate that thigh from its joint. It's going to pop out. And then we're going to pull it up. Take our knife here and cut close to the carcass, right in between the joints. Then we have another thigh and leg portion. And once again, we're going to look for that fat. That's where our joint is going to be. And it's going to cut right in between the joint. We have another thigh and another drumstick. Now that we have taken care of the drumsticks and the thighs, we're going to take care of the wings. I'm going to start by taking off the tips. And we're not going to keep these, but we're going to save them, and we're going to use them to make stock later on. So I'm going to just crack the joint here so that I can expose it and I can cut in between those two joints. Okay. And I'm going to do the same thing with the other one. I'm going to cut that little skin right there. Then we're going to crack it to get the joint out of place. And then I'm going to take my knife and I'm going to go in between the joint and cut it off. Okay, now to take off the wings, we're going to flip it so that it is breast side down. And we're going to cut behind the wing. I'm going to pop the wing out of its joint. Slice in between the joint, and off comes the wing. I'm going to do the same thing to the other wing. Pull it back. I'm going to cut behind it. Pop it out of its joint. There. And cut in between the joint. Now comes the second wing. Now we're going to divide the wings into two so we can have two wing halves. We're going to open it up a little and we're going to cut that little piece of skin right here. Crack it. And then we're going to cut in between the joints. So now we have two halves of one wing. Now we're going to do the same thing for the other. We're going to cut that little fold of skin. Crack it. The joint comes out and we cut in between the joint. Now we have two wings split in half. Now the final part is the breast. In between the two breastbones, we have this bone called the keel bone, and that is the breastbone. And we're going to cut on either side. We're going to start by making one cut along the keel bone. We're going to cut all the way down to the rib cage. Once we get to the rib cage, we're going to start angling our knife down, and we're going to get as close to the rib cage as we can, and we're just going to cut away that breast meat. So I'm angling my knife down and also a little bit to the side. I'm not cutting straight down, I'm cutting downwards and at an angle to remove that breast meat. And also one more thing, the wishbone is right here, and it kind of has like a V shape, and you want to cut around that. You don't want to cut through the wishbone, you want to cut around it. So cutting around the wishbone close to the rib cage, and then we have one chicken breast. Now I'm going to do the same thing for the other side. I'm going to cut along the keel bone down to the rib cage. I'm going to keep my blade as close to the rib cage as I can, cutting down it at an angle. And I'm going to pull away that breast meat. And I'm going to angle it around the wishbone. And off comes that second breast. Now after that we have the carcass left over, and you don't want to throw this away because you can save it to use to make chicken stock. After we've cut up our chicken, we are left with 2 breasts, 2 thighs, 2 drumsticks, 2 wings split in half, and left over we have 2 wing tips and 1 carcass that we can use to make chicken stock.